First, we'll begin by chanting the Dhammadarastic. Namam Isvaram Satchit Anandarupam Lasat Kundalam Go Kule Prajamanam Yashoda Biolukala Davamanam Aram Ristam Ajanta Todrucha Gopya Rudantam Mohur Netra Yugmam Rijantam Karam Boja Yugmena Satanka Netram Muhu Swasa Kampa Chirekanka Kanta Stita Grivam Damodaram Bhakti Badam Itidrik Salilabir Ananda Kunde Swagosham Nimajantam Akyapayantam Hari Eshita Greshu Bhakta Jitatram Huna Prema Tastam Shata Vritti Vande Varam Deva Moksham Namoksha Vadimba Nachanyam Vrineham Vareshada Piha Idam Teva Purnata Gopala Balam Sada memanyastya virastam kimanyai idam te mukam bhojam achantanilai ritam punsalai snigdha raktaishya gopya muhushchumbitam bimba raktadaram me Manas Yavirastam Alam Lakshalabai Namo Deva Damoda Ananta Vishnu Prasida Prabho Dukkha Jalabdi Magnam Kripa Dristi Prisyati Dinam Bhatanu Grihane Shamam Agyam Ajaksha Drishya Uvaratma Cho Pata Murchai Vayatvat Twaya Mochi Do Bhakti Bhajao Kritau Cha Tata Prema Bhaktim Sakame Priyacha Namokshe Graho Mesti Damodareya Namaste Damne Spura Deepti Damne Twaidi Odorayata Vishwasya Damne Namo Radhikayai Twadiya Priyayai Namo Nanda Lilaya Devaya Tubhyam Namo Radhikaya Tvatiya Priyaya Namo Nanda Lilaya Devaya Tubhyam Namo Radhikaya Tvatiya Priyaya Namo Nanda Lilaya Devaya Tubhyam Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo Hare Ramo Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Hare Ramo, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So in our discussion of the Damodarastic prayers, we're up to text 5 tonight, and we'll discuss that and then continue with the conclusion of the Govardhan Leela, focusing on Krishna's interaction with Indra and then the Sarabi cow. And if we have time, we might look for more insight into Indra's complexities. We might look into Brihad Bhagavatamrita, the first volume. Om Jnana Timirandasya, Gyananjana Shalakaya, Chakshurun Militam Yena, Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhar, Sri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Idam te mukam bhojam achantanila. First of all, we're focusing intensely upon the face of little Krishna. In the previous verse, we heard the heartfelt desire that the form of Baal Gopal ever be manifest in the heart. Idam te vapurnata Gopala balam sarame meastya verastam kimanyan. There's no need for any other benediction. I just want to see Baal Gopal in the core of my heart, and no other kind of benediction will compensate for that. And we discussed the last time the various types of benedictions being repudiated by this verse, even existence in Vaikuntha, even spiritual opulences. The prayer is saying, I simply wish this form of Baal Gopal always be at the core of my existence. So you're focusing now on Baal Gopal, but this verse today, number 5, focuses on Sri Mukha, the lotus face of Baal Gopal. And that face, idam te mukam bhojam, lotus face. Picture a lotus flower and then the lotus face surrounded by bumblebees. Just like a lotus flower could be surrounded by bumblebees, similarly, the lotus face of Baal Gopal is surrounded by black hair. So you're seeing the lotus flower surrounded by bumblebees, and you're understanding a little bit, a tiny bit of how beautiful Krishna's face is, unlimitedly beautiful. Therefore, his face and even his feet are compared to a lotus flower. But no material description can give you the fullness of Krishna's beauty. So, what is the nature of the hair that's surrounding the lotus face, just as bumblebees surround a lotus flower? Mm. Atyanta Nila. The hair is very dark blue, bluish black, and it's curly. Kuntalai, snigda. It's very soft and glossy. And snigda raktaish. It's tinged with red. So therefore, we sing about how the lotus face is encircled by locks of soft black hair tinged with red. And what else is going on with that Sri Mukha, that lotus face? It's kissed again and again by Mother Yashoda. Ritam Kuntalai Snigda Raktaischa Gopya. Now, that word referring to the gopis or singular to the gopi, Sanatana Goswami says it can confidentially not simply refer to Mother Yashoda, but it can also refer to Srimati Radharani. His face is kissed again and again by one of those two gopis. One in Vatsalya Prem, parental love, and the other in Madhurya Prem. So the prayer goes on to speak about Krishna's lips, reddish like the bimba fruit. Bimba rakta dharame. And the prayer asks that this most beautiful vision of the lotus face always be manifest in the heart. So again, we're focusing really intensely on the face. So much so that no other benedictions are wanted. They have no value. Everyone is looking for value in life, whether uh, some kind of consumer value or investment value or some kind of value. Everything is commodified in the world these days. So you have to demonstrate value in whatever you do. It has to be monetized, it has to be tabulated. I was hearing recently how one famous model described how she had, in her own words, I successfully commodified my body, but I'm not happy. So everyone is searching for material value, but we're trained in bhakti to go for the true value, which is spiritual. We minimize to the point of ignoring the hope that material value will satisfy us. We know that that is completely an hallucination. So this prayer is clarifying what is real value. So much so that I don't want anything else. May your lotus face be ever manifest in my heart. Mm. So now we go to the end of the Govardhan Leela, which continues beyond Krishna placing Govardhan Hill back on the ground. It continues beyond the Brijbasis expressing their gratitude. And we've been hearing about Indra and his complexities. He actually didn't want to be chastised. That was his real motivation. We discussed this. He was saying whatever he could to avoid the wrath he felt was going to be coming and that he deserved to get. He was very clever, as we discussed last time, saying that punishment doesn't do a person like him any good. In other words, don't punish me. And he revealed his mind, saying that I attacked Vrindavan. I did all that because I thought that you were going to take my share of the yajna. You were going to take what belonged to me. And Krishna's response was also on the level, so to speak, speaking straight to the heart. I stopped the yajna just to dismantle your pride. Of course, dealing with Indra was a side issue for Krishna. The real issue was to give pleasure to the residents of Vrindavan. But in the process of doing so, Krishna dismantled Indra's pride. And so now he's telling Indra, you can leave. Well, Indra doesn't belong in Vrindavan. So Krishna tells him, you may go now. I want you to execute my order. You have that position as the king of heaven. But please, Krishna tells him, be sober. Don't become overwhelmed by false pride. The acharyas point out that although Indra is alone at this point with Krishna, Krishna is speaking in the plural, letting other big devatas, big demigods know that they should also be without pride. Now, we briefly discussed last time that Krishna did not promise that Indra would never be attacked by pride again. He knew this is Indra's problem amidst Indra's devotion. Demigod, Devata existence is mixed for the most part. And so often these extraordinarily powerful controllers become proud. And we're going to see that later in Krishna Lila when Krishna and Indra interacted over the Parijata flower. Also, another item removed from Indra's heavenly realm was the Sudharma assembly house. So it seems for Krishna's Leela on earth, so many of Indra's treasures were being raided, and he didn't really like it. Mm. So Indra might want the mercy of being able to stay in Braj, but Krishna told him, go to your place, follow my order, do as I instructed. And Krishna knows Indra later will become victimized by his pride again. So now it's time for Sarabi to step in. She's been waiting, as we briefly discussed last time. She's been waiting for Indra to finish his presentation. Mm. She feels comfortable talking to a cowherd boy. She's a cow. The origin of Sarabi is intricate. She's from the material planet, the planet of the cows within the material realm, where big demigods like Brahma and others keep their cows. But she viewed the spiritual cows of Braj as her own offspring. She's identified, these are all my kindred, these are all my fellow cows. First of all, she spoke up last because she wanted to first hear and witness the omniscience of Krishna and experience his generous nature. He didn't smash Indra personally. Indra's pride had been smashed, but not Indra personally. So she wanted to hear Indra's confession. So therefore, she waited. So Sanatan Goswami says that Surabhi was thinking, let the great offender, Indra, who's come with me, let him try to get the Lord's mercy. And then I will be able most effectively to make my request because the mercy will be flowing and I'll kind of ride in on the wave. Or else, she was thinking, let him get out of the way first. Let him go through what he's got to go through. Let him get what he's got to get. There's a good chance he's not going to get any direct mercy because he's a great offender doing violence to Gokula. So if there's going to be any thunderstorm in terms of the way Krishna deals with him, let's get that out of the way first. Now it's her turn. Krishna's finished with Indra, and she addresses Krishna, crying out in joy. How do you know it's joy? Because she calls out his holy name several times. Krishna, Krishna, Mahayogin, Vishvatman, Vishva Sambhava. Krishna, Krishna, O greatest of the mystics, O soul of the universe, O origin of the universe. She's ecstatically chanting. She's letting Krishna know. We call you Mahayogi because you protected my fellow cows by lifting Govardhan, and you did it by the strength of your yoga power. I've explained many times that yoga doesn't simply mean connection, it also means some kind of special ability, even in material creatures. When you see a bird flying in the air, that's yoga power. When you see worms tunneling through the soil, that's yoga power. You can't do that. So Krishna is Mahayogi. He's the greatest yogi with the greatest yoga power. And Sarabi is pointing that out. You protected my fellow cows by lifting Govardhan Hill with your yoga ability. Therefore, she says, we've accepted you as our master. What's the use of this Indra who tried to destroy my fellow cows? This is why she's going to present her conclusion. Kamna Indro Jagatpate. You our Indra. Please take that role because that's the truth. You're not simply master of the universe, but personally to us, you are our Indra. And you benefit the cows, the brahmanas, the demigods, and all other saintly persons. So she's going to appeal for that. And she now tells Krishna, we want to perform your bathing ceremony, Abhishek, to coronate you as Indra. In other words, I've had enough. I and my fellow cows have had enough of leadership of the leadership of imperfect demigods. Now we're going to directly be under the real Indra. We're going to directly be under Govinda. So the question might be raised, the acharyas point out. She wants to install Krishna in the role of Indra with an Abhishek. So Krishna could respond very humbly. By whose order do you want to do this? Is this some independent desire? So she can easily reply. Sarabi can easily reply. It's been ordered by Brahma. Remember from last session that before Indra came to meet Krishna at the base of Govardhan Hill, he went to see Brahma first because Indra was really, he knew I've done it. I've really done myself in this time. I've really made a maha mistake. And Brahma was cautious to tell Indra what to do, how to compensate, how to atone, because Brahma knew, I've made a mistake like this in the Brahma Vimohana Leela, trying to confiscate cows and cowherd boys. But I don't think it was as bad as what you did. But still, I'm being cautious. The best thing I can recommend, because I'm not going to go with you. I'm not going to go with you to when you beg for forgiveness. The best thing is to attract Krishna's favor by going with Sarabi, a cow. So Brahma arranged that. So this is why Surabhi can say to Krishna, it's not my independent speculation. It's the order of Brahma that I accompany Indra and that I do an Abhishek of you. Krishna might point out that, well, okay, Brahma has given this order, but he hasn't come. But Sarabi can tell him that I'm your intimate associate since I'm the mother of your cow families. She's claiming the spiritual cows of Braj as her associates. Brahma, he only deals with the material world. Brahma didn't come because he's afraid of making another offense. So in this way, Mother Sarabi makes her presentation. And she begins to bathe Krishna with her own milk. We discussed briefly before how Indra wasn't doing anything at that point. He was in the background. Other demigods had shown up. And they urged Indra, please step forward and you also participate in the Abhishek by pouring heavenly Ganga Jal heavenly Ganga water from the trunk of your carrier, Indra's carrier's Airavata, special elephant. So, in this way, Indra coronated Krishna and gave him the name, which eternally Krishna always has anyway, gave him the name Govinda because Indra felt authorized by the encouragement of the demigods who were not as offensive as he was. He then started to participate in the Abhishek. This event, this Abhishek, you might think is a routine event, or you might think it's exaggerated in terms of the effects the Shastra describes. This Abhishek affected not simply Braj, but the whole universe. All the residents of the higher planets took part in a massive celebration, Sankirtan, glorifying Lord Hari. Everyone's dancing, overflowing with joy. Narada Muni is there. Uh, the residents, as I said, of various heavenly planets. This joy was spontaneous and natural. It wasn't because they were ordered by Indra, have a festival, make sure you dance, sing ecstatically. No, this was all springing forth spontaneously and naturally. So, how was the whole universe affected? While the most leading demigods were chanting the glories. Isn't that what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita? Satatam kirtayantamam. Always chanting my glories. So the devatas are doing that, and they're showering flowers from all sides upon Krishna. Just like you see Abhishek in the temple. There's bathing of the deity with various liquids, and then there are flowers, shower of flower petals. But again, this Abhishek happening at the base of Govardhan Hill had a spillover effect. The whole universe was affected, not simply Braj. Srimad Bhagavatam explains that all the three worlds felt supreme satisfaction. It's something unknown in material life, supreme satisfaction. All our attempts at satisfaction fade after a few moments, and we know nothing else, so we try again. We work so hard, we go through so many ordeals just to have a few so-called magic moments. We're bought off so easily by the trinkets that the illusory energy offers. And to get those trinkets, we slave so much. We go through so many ordeals. We change bodies again and again. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur calls the process of giving up one body and taking another body to be tedious, repetitive, same old, the tedious process of samsara. Where do we get such overviews from? We would never think about such. When people do hear about reincarnation, and oh, yeah, okay, it happens, but they would never know without the guidance of the acharyas that the whole process is boring, tedious, same thing. I just Abhishek of Govinda. Supreme satisfaction is permeating all the three worlds. And what are the cows doing? Under the leadership of Sarabi, they're drenching the surface of the earth with their milk. We would think, oh, how can cows on the earth do that? Drench the whole surface of the earth planet with milk. It's not in our experience. Therefore, we're skeptical. If it's not in my experience, then how can it be? That's our pride. That's our arrogance. The bliss that those who partook in the celebration surpassed liberation. And even Indra felt great joy, Sanatan Goswami tells us. Remember, he had really been under the gun. He had really been on a hot spot, but now he's feeling great joy. More effects of how the Abhishek affected the whole universe are given. Rivers flowed with various tastes. The rivers, one of the flavors that rivers tasted like was they tasted like milk. But not simply that one flavor, various tastes. What were usually ordinary rivers throughout the universe flowed with variegated tastes. And plants yielded grains and fruits without being cultivated. They yielded mature grains and fruits. And the mountains and hills gave forth jewels, gems that were normally hidden deep inside the hills and mountains. They poured out, literally. So we should understand that what was outstanding in Vrindavan now at this special event, this Abhishek spread throughout all the three worlds, all the universe. All the trees were flowing with honey, which normally is a Vrindavan specialty. The trees just pouring out honey as an ecstatic symptom. Another effect is that animals normally inimical toward one another, violent toward one another, became peaceful. That is usually something that happens just in Boma Brindavan, but now it's happening all over the universe. Animals that are normally enemies gave up their violence toward one another. So Shukadev Goswami is hinting to Pritchett Maharaj that at the time of your birth, this was also the case. And at the time of the annihilation of the Yadu dynasty, there was great lamentation. So now Indra is going to take Krishna's permission to leave and return to his heavenly abode. This pastime will be discussed in Vrindavan later. It could be, the acharyas say, that some of the Brijbasis were observing the situation from far off while hiding. Others, other acharyas say that, well, maybe Nanda and Yashoda had come for the Abhishek. Anyway, sooner or later, the word spread in Brudge about the Abhishek. It is possible that Sarabi didn't leave. She stayed in Brudge, feeling unity and feeling oneness with her cows, her fellow cows in Brudge. In any case, the cowherd boys were not present at this Abhishek. So some seem to know. The word seeped out to some afterwards, and some didn't know. Some say that the elder cowherd men and the elder cowherd ladies saw Indra and that Indra worshipped them. In any case, this is life in Brudge. Well, so many intricacies, so much talk. Did you see that? Did you see what Krishna did? Did you hear what Krishna did? That's the main thing. The is a terminology, Gramya Kata, village talk, which is mundane. Did you hear what so and so did? Did you hear what she said? But in Vrindavan, their village talk is 100% Krishna Kata. Ordinary mundane talks will never satisfy our desert like tongue. As Chaitanya Charitamrita states in Adi Leela in the beginning, our desert like tongues are crying out for the devotees of Lord Chaitanya to allow the nectarian waters of Krishna Kata to flow over our tongues. Our desert like tongues are crying out in conferences, crying out in press conferences, crying out in study halls and classrooms and houses and homes. Our desert like tongues are always crying out, even on a holiday. So Kaviraj Goswami states that our tongue can only be nourished by vibrating Krishna Kata. That's the only way our soul can be solaced. So please think about that. You're looking for peace, you're looking for inner succor, you're looking for inner satisfaction. It only comes from hearing and chanting about Krishna. The sooner you realize that, the better your life will be. So let's see how we're doing for time. Oh, maybe 15 minutes or so. We'll go to Brihad Bhagavatamrita, where most of those 3 volumes, and I hope everyone has the 3 volumes, are about the search for the greatest devotee. And that search begins on the earth planet and then goes next to the heavenly planets, where Indra is interviewed and then Brahma. And then the search continues past Brahma all the way into the spiritual world, all the way to the top of the spiritual world. So right now, we've just gone from the earth planet where one king, one saintly king has denied he's the greatest devotee and is pointing Narada Muni, go see Indra. He's the greatest devotee. So Narada Muni does that. He's on a quest to find the greatest devotee. But of course, each devotee he encounters that has been recommended to him as the greatest devotee always denies. No, no, it can't be me. No, no, no. You don't understand how deficient I am. But I do know someone who is the greatest devotee. So everyone's passing the buck. so Indra, so Narada Muni leaves the Earth planet and is at the abode of Indra in the heavenly planets, where Indra is situated along with Sri Vamana Dev, who appeared, that incarnation appeared as the younger brother of Indra. Both Indra and Vamana Dev are apparently, at least in terms of the Supreme Personality Guided, the sons of Kashyapa and Aditi. Of course, the Supreme Lord needs no mother, needs no father. So Lord Vamanadev is seated on his throne, being worshipped by all the demigods, including Indra. Indra is seated on his throne right next to Vamanadev. So Narada waits for Vishnu to leave to go to his own residence. Indra, as the respectful tradition is, Indra follows behind Vamanadev as he's leaving for some distance. And then Indra returns to the assembly hall. And that's when Narada Muni begins to speak. Narada Muni knows I can't glorify Indra as the greatest devotee when Supreme Personality God is present. But now that Vamanadev has left, Narada Muni starts to greet Indra. All glories to you. So Narada Muni begins his presentation. You have surely received the Supreme Lord's mercy. Why? All the devatas, all the demigods, Surya, Chandra, Yamaraj, they all obey your orders. Sages like me, Narada, are your subjects. And what do the Vedas say? They praise you as Lord of the universe. If you turn to the Rig Veda, you find that there's so many shlokas glorifying Indra. Most persons, if they have intelligence, if they're intelligent materialists, that means they want to go to the heavenly planets. And therefore they try to take advantage of all the prayers to Indra in the Rig Veda. In the age of Kali, no one has any intelligence. But a real materialist knows that real material benefit comes by praising the demigods. You see, in terms of the Vedas, you may wonder, why does Krishna say, and we're talking about Atharva Veda, Yajur Veda, Rig Veda, Samaveda, why does Krishna say in Bhagavad Gita, don't be bewildered by the flowery words of the Vedas? He's referring to those 4 Vedic texts in particular, because they're all about, for the most part, material benefit. There is direction there to serve Krishna, but it's buried amidst so many processes and directives for getting material results in a heavenly way. So it is said that mostly the Vedas deal with artha, economic development. Most of the Vedic formulas are for that purpose. Economic development in such a way that you go to the heavenly planets and prosper. Lesser than artha is kama, some instruction about sense gratification in a way that is good karma. You're bound up, you're chained in a pious way, not like the madness of karma today, in which you destroy yourself now and in the future. I remember a definition by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur of madness. He said, Mada, madness is when you act for so called happiness, what you think is happiness, in a way that destroys your intelligence. That is Mada. Good for us to remember. Because in this day and age, we're so prone to, in the name of pleasing ourselves and seeking satisfaction, we're so prone to destroy our intelligence. And we don't mind. All right, if it happens, it happens. But I had a magic moment. So most of the Vedas are about artha, economic development, lesser about kama, much lesser about dharma, principles of material religiosity, and very little about moksha, liberation into Brahman. And bhakti, although so pivotal whenever it's mentioned, it's almost hidden. But it's there. Just like in the Rig Veda, the famous shloka, Om Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam, Sada Pashanti Surya. The supreme destination is Vishnu. And all the devatas, all the demigods are focused on the lotus feet of Vishnu. That's very pivotal. But you see what happens, and I've explained this in Searching for Vedic India. Unintelligent persons see, they do a numerical analysis. Indra is mentioned, let's just say 100 times. Vishnu is mentioned twice. Obviously, Vishnu is not so important and Indra is so important. Indologists make this mistake all the time. Mundane scholars of Indology. But just think, and I give this example in Searching for Vedic India. If in the conversation, let's say, between one devotee and another, you mention a third devotee twice, 3 times, 10 times. Krishna Chandra, Krishna Chandra, twice, 3 times, 10 times. Yeah, that Krishna Chandra, wonderful devotee. You know him, don't you? And in one time you mention the name of the prime minister, whoever that is. Does it mean now that because you mentioned Krishna Chandra's name 10 or 20 times in the conversation and you mention the prime minister once, does it mean that, speaking materially, of course, the, the, that the prime minister means nothing? It's a relative example. Don't get into it too much. But you get the point. It's not about the frequency of mentioning Vishnu's name. It's about the qualifications, the accolades, the attributes that are outstanding, not the numerical count. Om Tad Vishnu Paramam Param, the supreme destination is Vishnu. So even though Vishnu is mentioned very slightly, there's always that pivotal presentation. But as I said, most persons will count Do a numerical count. Indra's name is mentioned 200 times, Vishnu 5 times. We can see that these Krishna bhaktas, they unnecessarily focus so much on Vishnu or Krishna. He is confidential. It's there, but it takes some spiritual intelligence and spiritual direction to see the jewels that are actually there, because our material intelligence will be blinded by all the references to economic development, good karma, sense gratification, material religion for material pious results, and even liberation into the impersonal Brahman. But devotional service? Raja Vidya Raja Guyam, the king of knowledge, the king of all secrets. So Narada Muni is saying to Indra, the Vedas all praise you as Lord of the universe. And the Supreme Lord Narayan's become your younger brother. And he even treats you as his elder brother, as generally is done in a civilized society. While Narada Muni is chanting Indra's glories, he starts playing his veena and dancing. What's Indra's response going to be? My dear Narada Muni, you're so expert in musical arts. Are you making fun of me? Indra's taking it as a humorous exchange. All that glorification, are you just saying that tongue in cheek? Are you just making fun of me? Do you know what it's like to rule heaven? Do you know how many times we Devatas have had to run for our lives in fear of the demons? Do you know the troubles we go through to hold on to power? We've been driven out of our heavenly abode so many times by rivals, forced to hide somewhere. This is Indra refuting that he's the greatest recipient of Krishna's mercy. And don't you remember Bali Maharaj, Bali Daitya? He even took my post as Indra. And then he put his own men in charge of the various departments like the sun, the moon. He even took my shares of the yagyas. I almost died from hunger and thirst because I wasn't getting anything from anyone's yagyas. Bali Maharaj took it all over. We demigods are always in anxiety about losing our controlling power. Don't you know this? Don't you know what it's like to rule heaven? As far as Upendra, that's another name for Vamanadev, Upendra, the younger brother of Indra. As far as my good fortune, because of the Lord appearing as my brother, my younger brother, he didn't appear in his original form. He appeared in only a partial expansion of himself. So don't make such a big deal out of the Supreme Personality of Godhead being my younger brother. It wasn't Swayam Bhagavan. It wasn't the original personality of Godhead. It was just an expansion. This is Indra's way of deflecting the praise for himself. And how did Vamanadev accomplish giving me back my kingdom after Bali Maharaj, Bali Daityaraj confiscated my heavenly kingdom? Did Vamanadev defeat Bali Maharaj in battle? No, he tricked him. He resorted to tricks. So Another reason why I'm not such a big deal. Another reason why Indra, am not such a big deal. I lost what I had and got it back, not by fighting, not by battle, but by the Lord's being tricky as a little Brahmana boy. In other words, I'm so insignificant. I'm not worthy of a real battle. So, what happiness do we residents of heaven actually enjoy? We're always in constant fear. We are tainted with faults like pride and rivalry and jealousy. So, actually, let me tell you, Narada Muni, Indra says, we demigods are actually not deserving of any worship because we're hardly better than ordinary persons. And then, of course, Indra's going to refer to Krishna confiscating the Parijata flower and then a Parijata tree, and also the Sudharma assembly hall. He took it to Dwarka. You're not supposed to, Indra is telling him, in other words. These treasures of the heavenly planets are not supposed to be taken to Earth because the Earth is a planet of lesser beings. Earth is a planet where death is so prominent. Of course, the demigods also die, but earthly existence is like a fly's existence, a few moments only. So, therefore, the Sudharma assembly house and the Parijata flower and the Parijata tree don't belong on Earth. But Krishna stole these things. So, this is again Indra continuing to downplay, even deny, or more precisely, deflect Narada Muni's praise. And then what about, Indra says, what about the lifting of Govardhan Hill? For years, the cowherd boys, the cowherd men, the whole village of Braj has been offering to me the yagya, the Indra puja. But Krishna ruined it all. He persuaded them to offer everything meant for me, Indra, offered to Govardhan Hill. And not only that, but during Krishna's pastimes, he's burned down my favorite forest, the Kandava forest. Why? To cure Agni, the Devotee in charge of fire, to cure him of a stomach ache. Krishna destroyed my Kandava forest with the help of Arjuna. And Arjuna's my own son. How can I be so great? And then there was Vritrasura, who was devouring the three worlds. The Supreme Personality Godhead was actually indifferent in his response. And what's the proof that he was indifferent to handling Vritrasura? He sends me, Indra, to deal with Vritrasura. In other words, oh, send a small timer. No need for, for me to do this minor task. We'll send a minor personality to do a minor task. So in this way, Indra continues to downplay himself, and he's going to eventually point Narada Muni in the direction of Lord Brahma. You want to find a real devotee, someone who's really got the Lord's mercy, go see Brahma. So it could be said that when Indra offers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Lord appears in order to take those offerings. But Indra says, that's no credit to me. That's just reciprocation with the bhakti of others. And even if you say, well, I benefit by the Lord's presence, let me tell you, he only stays around long enough to take the offerings and then he goes away. If you say, Narada Muni, that I get the darshan of the Supreme Lord, well, let me tell you, we can't be certain where he lives. His abode is unapproachable. Even sages have difficulty approaching his abode. Sometimes he's in Vaikuntha. Sometimes he's on Dhruvaloka, Dhruva Maharaj's planet. Sometimes within the ocean of milk. So if I'm such a great devotee, I should be able to join him. But I'm not sure where he is. He could be anywhere in Vaikuntha, the material world, on the Vaikuntha planet, Rama Priya, that's within the material world, Dhruva's planet, Sweta Dweep in the ocean of milk. I don't know. Oh, you say now he's in Dwarka on Earth? But even that we can't be sure of because sometimes he leaves Dwarka to go to Hastinapur where the Pandavas are. And sometimes he goes to Thura. He sneaks back to Braj. So finally, Indra is pointing out that it's difficult for us to see him, what to speak of obtaining his mercy. Sometimes he's in the city when he's in Mathura. Sometimes he's wandering in Gokul from forest to forest. Indra is letting you know, Sanatan Goswami says, that it's difficult to understand what and why Krishna does things. You would think, well, Indra can see Krishna very easily. Even while he's speaking to Narada Muni, Krishna is appearing on earth. But Krishna's appearance is confidential. Even Indra gets bewildered, as we just heard in Govardhan Leela. And when Krishna stole the Parijata flower from Indraloka, a Parijata flower that should be meant for Indra's wife, Satyabhama. No, Sachi. Krishna stole the Parijata flower, the tree for Satyabhama, the flower for Rukmini. Indra was thinking with his pride that Krishna has become degraded by association with the residents of earth. In particular, Indra thought that Krishna had come under the control too much of women. He's henpecked by his wives and he's doing these things, raiding the heavenly planets of its treasures. So Indra gets really confused and he's telling that to Narada Muni. Can you say I've gotten Krishna's mercy? Look, I'm confused. And he does confusing things. I don't understand his constant wandering on earth. He spends a short time in Gokula. He sports in Mahavan, Vrindavan, other forests. He lives for a few years in Mathura, and he finally settles down in Dwarka. And even when he settles down in Dwarka, he's on the move constantly to Hastinapur, to Mithila, back to Brajabhumi. All beyond me, in other words. But you should know your own father is the true recipient of the Lord's mercy. Your own father, Narada Muni, Lord Brahma. So in this way, Indra gives a very powerful presentation of how he sees himself when he is in the best consciousness. But But as we heard in Govardhan Leela, sometimes that best consciousness is eclipsed by pride, and then Indra can do some regrettable things, very regrettable things. So, in conclusion, let us not seek a destination in the heavenly planets. Let us always seek opportunities for devotional service. Wherever pure devotees gather to glorify Krishna, that is the spiritual world. This is our desire. In the future, I may speak more about this. I was discussing it earlier today. With from Baba Devi Dasi, how Prabhupada was giving such a, not such a high, the highest standard of bhakti. If you would listen, he was saying that even the desire to go to Vaikuntha is in some way contaminated. A devotee doesn't want anything except service. And wherever that service is, that's what the devotee wants to do. Wherever the service is that Krishna wants, that's where the devotee wants to go. So we're talking about not going to the heavenly planets, but here there's something higher than even the desire to go to Vaikuntha. The desire is to simply serve Krishna wherever he wants. And that desire means you're in the spiritual world. Being in the spiritual world is not a question of changing locations geographically. It's about changing the consciousness. So in the future, we may talk more about this. How Srila Prabhupada, the, the, the true Rasika, is demonstrating and speaking about the standard of the highest standard of bhakti. He was expounding on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's verse, Mama Janmani Janmani Svare Bhavatad Bhakti Ahaitaki Tvai. Birth after birth, I don't mind. So Prabhupada was challenging. You say you want to go to Vaikuntha, but Mahaprabhu says, Mama Janmani Janmani Svare. So what's going on here? Mahaprabhu is saying that I don't mind birth after birth as long as I have a chance to engage in devotional service. So Prabhupada was pointing out there's a contradiction here. The desire, not for impersonal Brahman, but the desire to go to Vaikuntha, and Mahaprabhu, who is Krishna teaching the highest standard of bhakti, teaching how to be a perfect bhakta. Mahaprabhu is saying, Mama Janmani Janmani Ishwari. Birth after birth, I don't mind as long as I have devotional service. This is top drawer. This is the outer limits of bhakti. So in the future, we may talk more about this. All right. Here in Melbourne, Australia, I have some guests scheduled, and I already indulged in your association longer than I. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.